Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring CaRNaGe in the red Zerg top left corner, and Jiang, which will be our blue Protoss, in the top right corner. We are on Shakuras Plateau. Jiang is in Platinum, and CaRNaGe is in Diamond. Mid-Diamond for CaRNaGe. Jiang is like in top 5 Platinum, so he's basically a Diamond already. It's a ladder match. I'm sure Jiang is preparing to move up in ranks. So I expect to see a comparable level of skills despite the leagues being different. Jiang's already got his probe in position to throw down that first pylon down on the low ground to secure the Forge Fast Expand, just so he can grab that Nexus a little bit early. Totally standard now is to place your wall down here even if you're not going for the Forge Fast Expand to Gateway or whatnot. So I guess it is a little bit, I don't know, early for me to call that a Forge Fast Expand, but that's totally standard. Nobody does the two gate pressure on a map that has the rush distance between the two, even if you do scout correctly like Jiang is doing. It's not as successful. A lot of players have learned how to deal with it already. CaRNaGe doing the extractor trick just to get up that one extra probe before his Overlord comes out. He has sent his Overlord in the proper direction also, so both players know that they're going cross spawn, close cross spawn. To know that the aggression is going to be stepped up just a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see if CaRNaGe decides to throw down the pool first or go for the hatch first. Personally, in this matchup with the locations, I'd probably go pool first. Yeah, pool first. Just a little bit added peace of mind to know that if there is a proxy gate, if this guy threw down a pylon very, very close for some shenanigans, you'd have your ability to, you know, get up the units that you need. There goes that first extractor. Also, totally standard for the Zerg. Get up that 100 energy, so you can get the metabolic boost on the way. Allow your Zerglings to really abuse the open landscape of Shakuras. Look at that. It's just massive, and the surrounds that you can get there from anywhere is amazing, especially if you can split up your units correctly. Right, that pool's going to finish. Both players look like they're gearing up for the macro game. Money is being saved. It's going to be interesting to see which path CaRNaGe decides to go. Get out the first 6 Zerglings. Maybe he's afraid that this probe, which is down in his natural, is going to build a pylon the second he sees a probe to deny the expansion. It's not the biggest deal because you can still grab your third first if he's going for 3 base play. 6 Zerglings on the way just to deny that. Still playing very conservatively. Jiang, though, is a little bit more aggressive. He's got another pylon, a forge, and a gateway. Securing that Nexus, he'll need another building, probably a Cybernetics core, to complete the wall off. But this is a very powerful build, especially if you can get the photon cannon up in the back door. Usually you see the photon cannon go up before the gateway just so the wall off is finished, but you have that defense in place. As you can see, Zerglings are coming out, so that photon cannon just now getting started. It's not going to be done when these Zerglings arrive. 2 of them are going to get in. That Robe not succeeding in throwing down the Cybernetics core in time. These 2, actually, I think they'd be better off running up into the probe line to do some harassment there, get a better scout off, see that there's 2 gas being grabbed. But as things are now, this proton cannon is going to finish if it's microed correctly, and it finishes off the 2 Zerglings before it goes to work on the 4 down, working on the Cybernetics core. He should be able to hold this, but it's going to be very close. 50 health on that photon cannon. If another 2 Zerglings had made it in, that would have been it. But as things are now, another photon cannon going down, but this Cybernetics core is going to finish. Still has just a little bit of health left. Might even succeed in taking out that Overlord. Nope. Barely makes it away. Lucky guy. There's a good call by CaRNaGe to ignore the probe to do that extra harassment, though I think the scouting could have been a little bit better. It could have come up and seen that the double gas was being grabbed. Still, that's standard. Not the biggest things in the world, especially if you can get this Overlord repositioned to scout the gas, just to see if there are going to be a heavy tech play. But tech is on the way nonetheless. We see the warp gate tech coming out, no extra gateways, so Jiang is content to hold behind that wall, allowing CaRNaGe to grab an extra hatchery as well as his third. I wonder if CaRNaGe is going to go for that 3 base roach play that we've seen all the time. This map is so huge that it can be kind of punishing to the slowness of those roaches, but on the other hand, it's so big that you can really get up that max roach army in the proper amount of time. You can really hit it at like the 12-18 minute window and just knock down the front door, especially if you can keep your Protoss partner contained. But without a second gas and nobody mining on the gas, even though both bases are coming up, I don't think that that's where CaRNaGe is going. I think he's going to lean more heavily towards a Muta Ling, maybe just Ling and Fester. With that new 1-gate into Robo into 3-gate play that Day 9 was talking about a little while ago, it's really forced Zerg to adapt and kind of move away from those roaches with all the plethora of immortals that have been on the field. We can see that Jiang's grabbed an extra 2 assimilators, so he's going to have a lot of gas that he can blow on upgrades if he's being greedy, or tech. Twilight Council coming out, so that is one of the buildings that we'd expect to see if we're going to have a Robo come out shortly thereafter. The Immortals, and then you have the Zealots with Charge leading the pack just as a meat shield. Very effective. Double Spore coming out. Jiang, I don't believe he's going for air, even though he definitely has the gas for it. The spores could also be used to scout DTs later on. CaRNaGe is being conservative in that regard. He doesn't know that there's air coming out on the field. He's just going to be prepared for a cloak play. There's the Robo facility coming out for Jiang, so it will be a bit of a heavy Immortal Zealot play. Very effective against a lot of builds, especially if you have a lot of sentries that are already out on the field storing up energy. We can only see 2 right now. They've been out for a little while, this guy at least, so he's got a lot of force fields, but you'd expect to see a larger number because with the wide open spaces, Zerglings can really eat up this force if they can get a good surround, and that force relies upon the force fields from the sentries, which you don't see out of Jiang yet. You also don't see a lot of drones out of CaRNaGe. With 3 bases, you'd expect his probe count to be significantly higher at the 10-minute mark, but it looks like his aggression has forced him to kind of back off a little bit on that. 6 drones out, he's going to catch up in a very short amount of time. Some stalkers. See, again, I would expect these to be sentries. You don't really need stalkers at this level unless he's terrified of a air-based play. With the Immortals coming out, yeah, Mutas would be incredibly effective, but you can't really expect to see Mutas on a 3 base. I don't believe, actually. Does he know? Does Jiang know? He doesn't know, because he hasn't been scouting. So that observer's coming out is going to see the 3 bases. Once he sees the 3 bases, I expect Jiang to back off on the stalker production, go back to the sentries, because that's really what this build relies upon, especially with more gateways getting out. Maybe another robotics facility. Could be a 7-gate though. I don't know. A lot of static defenses up for CaRNaGe, so that observer is going to have to be very careful. Where is that observer? It's dead already. Or is it not built? No, it's built. It's just dead. I guess it moved directly into one of the spore crawlers and it got a kill. Or maybe it was one of the queens. I don't know. I should rewind, but I'm not going to because it's done. Another observer being built though, so he does know that the bases are up. Because he knows the base is up, it looks like he's going to get a warp gate out with that dark shrine. He's not really behind. He's not trying to do cheese or anything like that. Just try to do some aggression with minimal risk to him. Nexus coming out for the 3rd, but this force is severely lacking in one of the key mechanics, which is that sentry. These sentries are almost completely full on energy, but there's just 2 of them. And with these Zerglings on the field, and many more on the way, if those Zerglings catch this force out in the open field, if he catches them transitioning between the 2 bases, if he pokes up at the main, at the front door, and kind of scares them back because he had to knock down that forge to get out, so that front door is totally open. Here comes the Zerglings, units at the bottom of the ramp, a lot of force fields any day now. There goes the force fields protecting the units, but all these, that was required quite a lot of energy from the sentries, and these guys need to fall back. There goes the Zerglings falling back, but once these force fields go down, these guys only have enough energy to throw down 2 more force fields, and yes, that can hold the ramp for another 15 seconds or whatnot, but if these Zerglings decide to go all hog wild, they can definitely sack that 3rd. Jiang is relying on these DTs, though, to do some damage. The lair was morphed down at the natural, not as well as up in the main. That's a good call. Doubling up on that tech, if you've got the money, makes you less vulnerable to that type of drop play and Overlord getting or a overseer getting morphed in to scout those DTs, so that harassment was minimally effective. It's more effective to split them up, sending one DT to every one of those expansions minus the third, which has the detection already in place. Zergling's going to make it into the third for Jiang, getting intercepted. Again, the sentries have lost quite a lot of energy, still don't have enough for the Zerglings deciding to focus down the Nexus. Some force fields going down to prevent the surround, but there's so many Zerglings and not enough sentries, they can't do that completely. All the Zerglings are going to fall, but the units lost tab is still currently in the favor of CaRNaGe, because he's got that third base and he managed to catch some of these guys unprepared. That third goes down to 9, the scouting for Jiang, which is something he really wants. Again, it would have been more effective to have more sentries out, less stalkers. The zealots and the immortals would be very good with this build. It looks like he's going for a high gas play. A lot of Dark Shine, Dark Templars, Archons are going to be devastating to these Zerglings if Jiang decides to get those out. It looks like CaRNaGe is transitioning to a double Spire play, getting, again, 2 Spires, just protection against those DTs, having them in 2 different locations. The Observer getting very clever this time, denying detection from this Overseer, though his current pathway is going to take him right by it. It looks like there's some idle Zerglings not being rallied. Will this... Oh no, he's correctly microing away from the Spore and Crawler and all that. So that's great. That is very good control by Jiang. Like I was saying, 2 Spires up, I mean, we're going to see a lot of mutas. CaRNaGe has a lot of gas that he can afford to spend because he's only blowing minerals on the Zerglings, just kind of holding back this army. It looks like Jiang is ready to move out, but again, he's only got 2 sentries to deal with all of those Zerglings, and if they can get in, they can do quite a lot of damage. What's really going to be the kicker for Jiang are these High Templars who do not have Storm yet. Storm is not researched. They're just there to do feedback on some Infestors, which aren't on the field at all. Broodlords, Banelings being morphed in. They'll be very effective if they can get on top of the enemy, and with the small amount of force fields, they should be able to close, especially if the Zerglings do a contain. Poking in at the third, it looks like CaRNaGe is going to deny the proxy pylon before he actually moves in. We can see a lot of mutas are already on the way. It'll be interesting to see if CaRNaGe decides to use them to deal with this aggression or sends them off into the third. If we look down the minimap, we do see that CaRNaGe is poking in at the third. Wall off is not complete. All these probes are going to go down against the Zerglings, while the mutas and some Banelings deal with reinforcements up in the north. At the same time, Jiang has sacked the third. He's moving back into the secondary expansion, or the natural. That layer will fall, however, again, that tech is also up in the north, as well as the Spire, though it is exposed, it exists in the north also. CaRNaGe has pulled his units back without sacking that third completely. These Zerglings are going to get caught without having a good surround, but they are going to do quite a lot of damage, and reinforced by the Banelings and the mutas, they're going to be able to clean up this force. And now Jiang has to worry about his natural, which is very exposed. He does have a smaller force there. Good job in warping them in back at the third rather than up at the main. Overcorrecting like that could have definitely cost him this expansion. The Zerglings are going to come in, catch some High Templars unprepared. Storm is still not being researched, which would be just so devastating even against these mutas. If you can catch them, it does so much damage. The mutas are going to clean up these zealots, and I suspect this third is going to fall, which is really too bad because Jiang definitely needs this third. He needs the extra gas income if he's going to continue to power off those High Templars and Archons and Dark Templars. And with CaRNaGe grabbing a fourth again, Jiang is going to be significantly behind when it comes to economy, especially as his natural begins to get mined out. We're almost at the 20-minute mark. I expect that's going to be happening any minute now. The third is Jiang's attempting to save it with a lot of stalkers. Good choice against the mutas. There's not a lot of Zerglings still on the field. These mutas have to be very careful when engaging those stalkers. They have blink up, so the micro is going to be present. But the third, this does fall. CaRNaGe can retreat back, content knowing that even though he lost his natural, he succeeded in getting it back up, and he successfully denied the third, which is very key because Protoss on 3 base is very devastating. Infestor pit being built back up in the main. Quite a lot of tech there, not splitting it up as much. but it's still split up enough. It's split up enough that the Dark Templar will have to pick and choose their targets, have to choose exactly where they're going to attack. We haven't seen any Dark Templar out of Jiang, partially because he's been dealing with so much aggression from CaRNaGe, but I expect we're going to see a Warp Prism out of the Robo any minute now, unless there's one already on the field that is not. It looks like Jiang has gone purely for Blink Stalker right now. It's all his force has on the field. It's very mobile, but it needs to find a cubby to stick around. It can't be caught out in the open like this, especially if CaRNaGe continues on the Zergling Infestor route. High Templars still don't have Storm, though he continues to warp them in. It's interesting to see them without Storm, and there's no Infestors on the field currently, so I would have expected them to be morphed into these guys, these Archons, but no, we see 3 more just standing idle, harvesting energy, preparing maybe for the inevitable upgrade into a Storm Templar, or maybe just to the Archon. CaRNaGe floating a lot of money. Is he gearing up for a major attack, or is he just content to allow this third to go back up? Jiang's army is in position, and he continues to warp in all those High Templars. They do have Storm now. That's phenomenal. It's going to be so devastating whenever these mutas get caught, or maybe if the Zerglings decide to come in. Still no sentries in the army to protect them against those Zerglings, but it's still that Storm is definitely a good choice, especially against this large mutaball. So CaRNaGe can definitely afford to morph one of these guys into a high Greater Spire, get out those Broodlords, do that Doom push. This is an incredibly exposed main, especially with the army down defending the third. Those mutas could do flybys, take out a lot of tech, because there's no static defenses defending any of that. This pylon could depower quite a lot of tech. But as things are now, CaRNaGe is floating at 192 supply, floating quite a lot of money, not as much gas, but he's got the income for it. It looks like some Dark Templars are down in CaRNaGe's main. Warp Prism has come out, warped in 2 Dark Templars. They're going to go work on the spawning pool. Detection is en route, and once they get spotted, it looks like they were actually spotted by the Spore Crawler. They go down without taking down the spawning pool. I don't know about the spawning pool. I probably would have gone Spire, finally getting the hive up so that we can get that higher tech out. But it was a good harassment right there. Good Storm coming down, those mutas flying right into that. Another Storm coming right on top of those mutas. You can see all that orange just chaining those storms. Wow, that's absolutely devastating. 198 to 124 supply. What a massive damage. Those High Templars definitely paying for themselves right there. Good choice in not morphing them to the Archons, even though that tech was delayed. Very, very devastating attack. And now CaRNaGe is on the back foot. He has to deal with this bundle of Joy, which is an Archon, and the Stalkers. Anti-air just doing massive damage to those mutas, and then 1 or 2 splash damage AoEs from the Archon finishes off the ball. This third is definitely going to fall. We can see only 14 Zerglings on the way. We have the very standard 25-minute Roach Warren coming out. So there's not a lot that CaRNaGe has to answer it, even though he has a lot of money. The force that he needs to deal with this would be Roaches, because they're so fast to be built, and they do quite a lot of damage and are very cost effective, but he doesn't have that Roach Warren up. Without that Greater Spire, he doesn't have a way to get back into the game once his third falls, especially as the Harvester count's completely dead there. These Stalkers blinking around, just doing some massive damage, and then the Archons being morphed in. I think this is game. CaRNaGe is too far behind, and once these Archons come up, they're going to be able to push up into the main and take out all the tech. Deciding to deal a death blow to the third while Jiang is doing the correct thing, which is grabbing an expansion while you're having aggression. We see the Roaches are coming out, but it's just too late. The Stalkers are going to be able to move right up into the natural, even though they're retreating a little far for the Broodlings, going down into the fourth instead. That's good too. Hey, you know, there's no mining going on in the main. Yeah, there's mining going on in the natural, but you can take out the third, the fourth, and then if you want to, poke up into the main. If you don't, that's fine too. Corruptors are being built, but with only 2 bases, only one of which is mining, CaRNaGe no longer has the income capable of dealing with this. If he had Broodlords, he could have had him up on the high ground. We don't see an observer with this army. Broodlords would have destroyed this force if they were Broodlords instead of Mutas. But as things are now, the roaches that are standing up at the top aren't going to be enough to deal with the Blink Stalkers. As soon as these Archons get in there, they're going to absolutely devastate them. Poor CaRNaGe. It was, very good play, especially with the Zerglings early on, but he needed to tech switch, and he did not. Jiang was a great hold right here with the hero photon cannon dealing with all those Zerglings as they were trying to poke down the Cybernetics core, so that was awesome. The DT harassment was ineffective, but it was well thought out. It was a good call sending in the DTs, but they just didn't do the damage necessary, and then realizing that the static defenses were already in place, you had some Spore Crawlers for detection, so they weren't going to be 100% effective, and then switching those up to the High Templars was also a great call, because that is a perfect choice against the build that CaRNaGe was using. What else is a perfect choice is watching my videos. Yep. I appreciate it, guys. If you have a comment for me, you could leave it here or Reddit. If you have a game you want me to cast, I'd love to hear from you here or Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Bye.